Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Super Anime Bros podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rosario, joined by my brother, Angelo, and today we're going to talk about something we love.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. So today we're going in the next set of deep dives.
Yes, sir.
Which, for me, I chose Darling in the Franxx,
Yes,
and Rosario chose
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, so one classic, one newer show, so...
One classic.
Yeah. Well, it's not a classic. It's not even that old.
No, you're right.
But I think it's my turn to go first today,
It sure
so
is,
I'll
brother.
dive right into it
Okay,
with
cool.
Darling in the Franxx. It's going to be a little different from my last couple deep dives. I feel like I actually criticized this show, which is kind of funny because I didn't criticize any of the others, and this one's been the highest on my list.
I think it's...
I think that just speaks to like
good to
how
learn
good
something
the
critically
best
and-
parts are.
Yeah.
So much so that even with its flaws, it could be this far on my list here. So
Yeah.
I'll dive right into it with the plot. I stole this right from Crunchyroll here.
yeah, let us
In a
have it.
future where humanity has been driven to endangerment by giant beasts, a strike force is assembled to destroy the monsters and save the world. So that seems pretty simple there. Obviously, it's not, but that's a good way to describe the show here. So it's in a post-apocalyptic world, and all the surviving humans, they all live on these moving cities that are called they're called plantations, and they look very futuristic. No like wildlife or anything like that.
Yeah.
And protecting those plantations is the group of young adults who pilot the mechs.
Of
That,
course,
that they
naturally.
fight the Calaxosaurs, which are the giant beasts, and they fight them in boy-girl pairs. So it's kind of like Ava, but there's two people
Pairs, yeah, for sure.
in the mech, so it's a little different.
I'm sure there's other mechs
And
that do that, but
they
yeah.
all live in their own like kind of like domed off little city, which has like trees and all, and it's like a traditional looking house. It kind of looks like normal living spaces here today, which is it's kind of odd why they do that. But yeah, so the show definitely has a lot of upsides, a lot to like, a lot of super cool fights, and a lot of romance that I really enjoy. That I think that's what shines and makes the show very good. And the other thing I put down here was I love Polygon.
Yes, indeed.
Because there's a lot of different... When you put, I guess, a small group of young adults in a group together and make them live together and do everything together, then there's going to be some crushes
For sure,
happening.
especially when the ratio is perfect 1-to-1.
Yeah, when you're piloting
Yeah.
in boy-girl pairs. All right, so I'll dive right into it with our main character. His name's Hiro. And in the beginning of the show, he's completely depressed, like a shell of a guy. He's not able to pilot a Franxx.
Yeah.
He can't like sync up with his partner correctly, and he's gonna completely leave the plantation, just go back to where they keep all the kids, where they test them and train them, where they're born, where they experiment on them. It's pretty dark, but
seeing that later,
he's gonna
it's
go
not-
go back there. But when the plantation's attacked by like the strongest kind of Calaxosaur, he meets the woman who's gonna change everything for him, and that's Zero Two.
baby.
I mean, very, very popular anime girl here.
For sure.
And she gives him another chance because she and him can pilot together. And it's great when they do it. They're super strong. And with one kiss, she steals his heart and gives him a reason to live. And that's so they can fight the Calaxosaurs together. And in the beginning, her main inspiration is she wants to kill as many Calaxosaurs as she can so she can be fully human, because she's part Calaxosaur. Eventually we find out that she was made from the main Calaxosaur's blood, so she's like a clone.
He's got, like,
But she
horns
was
and all.
told ever since she was born that if she can kill enough Calaxosaurs, she can be a human. And she wants to be a human
Yeah, there's a lot
so she can be with her darling, which, I mean, it's in the name of the show,
isn't that
and
beautiful? Yeah.
eventually we find out who her darling is, and it turns out that Hiro was her darling from all the way back when they were kids. They just had their memories erased. They had like a really cute moment where he broke her out of the lab where she was being tested, and then they ran off together, but eventually they were caught and forced to go back to all the testing, and their memories were erased. Which is a big moment later in the show.
Yeah, pretty wild.
But we'll move on to some of the other characters. Those are obviously the main two, but the other ones do Definitely add a lot to the show, a lot of the great dialogue and a lot of the great moments involve them. So moving on here is Ichigo. She's the squad leader.
Ichigo.
Yes. She's the leader of the squad, Squad 13, and she's also in love with Hiro, which could be problematic because Hiro and Zero Two are like always off doing their own thing. They're not concerned about anything else. All he wants to do is they just want to become one. Yes. So it's tough for her. It's definitely hard to see her have these feelings and definitely be unreciprocated. She at one point tries to pilot a Franxx with Hiro so she can prove that he can do it with anybody, and it just doesn't work. He can only do it with Zero Two. Yeah. Even though piloting a Franxx with Zero Two is very dangerous. There's a part where Hiro almost completely dies because she just will kind of I don't know how they say it. They suck the soul out of the other person.
Yeah, it's some wild stuff.
Most of the time, she's had hundreds of partners and they've all died, except for him because he was made for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's in love with him, and that's pretty tough. And then moving on to her partner is Goro. He's kind of the calm and collected character. He's pretty cool, like that. And he is in love with Ichigo. So he has to watch her be in love with Hiro, who's not in love with her back.
Like I said,
well, that's a triangle right now, but it'll get more interesting.
Well, I mean, there's 4.
Yeah, and then moving on to the next character is Mitsuru. He's also kind of cool too, but he's just always angry and such a pessimist.
Yeah, he's an interesting character for sure.
Yeah, and I'll get more into that later, but he hates Hiro, and he's upset with him because Hiro made a promise that they would pilot a Franxx together when they were little kids, but unfortunately when Hiro lost his memories, he lost the memories of that promise. Yeah. And Mitsuru has no idea, and he's been angry at him ever since. Yeah. It does get resolved, but yeah, that's why he's angry. And then there's Kokoro. He's kind of a buddy crush on Hiro. Yeah. But moving on to Kokoro, she's kind of your sweet and gentle character. She takes care of the garden in their dome and all that. Mm-hmm. And she's in love with Mitsuru, which they have a lot more romance and development in the anime. In the manga, they got rid of so much.
It's wild,
which I'll touch on, but it's kind of crazy.
Hearing that from he's pretty crazy.
How they took that out in the manga. They definitely just prioritized. They really prioritized just Hiro and Zero Two.
Makes sense.
And then the other part of this polygon is Ikuno. She's partnered with one of the other guys, but she is in love with Ichigo.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So there's that's what makes it more than a triangle. Yeah. It's crazy.
Forgot about
because she's also watching and doesn't like to see Ichigo be upset.
Yeah, that's
that her feelings are going nowhere. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And she also wants to be able to pilot a Franxx with Ichigo and get rid of that whole pesky boy-girl pair thing. And then the next character I put down is Futoshi. He originally pilots with Kokoro. He's the chubby guy. Yeah. He pilots with Kokoro, and then Kokoro says, "Hey, I want to switch and ride with Mitsuru." I did not take any notes on because he's a pretty one-dimensional character. He's just kind of his whole thing is he's chubby and eats a lot.
And it's just
some comic relief. He's actually kind of cooler in the manga, which I'll get into briefly later. But yeah, in the anime, he's pretty much just there to fill out the rest of the squad. And then the next character is Miku. I put her. The only note I have is she's knockoff Asuka from Ava, because her whole thing is she's kind of like the tsundere. She's angry, but also hey, look at me, and she's always trying to prove that she's awesome too.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. And she's got the same red hair, kind of I guess what is her hairstyle? Where it goes off to the side. The classic tsundere hairstyle.
An inspiration.
I guess. I put knockoff, but inspiration works too. And then the other character is Zorome, who is Miku's partner. He isn't really a very important character either.
Him. He's
There's a part in the anime where he explores the adult city and runs away.
Yeah.
But in the manga they completely got rid of that too. They had a part where
I feel that's very interesting.
The two of them, Miku and Zorome, get in a fight and Miku runs away.
Yeah.
And then Zero Two also runs away with her because she wants to experience a real fight. Yeah. So then it ends up being 4 people who go and escape. Miku, Zorome, Zero Two, and Hiro goes after her. And they kind of explore the city together.
Interesting.
Which Yeah, I mean, the world building in the anime is kind of chaotic at times.
Yeah.
So I think in the manga they just thought being more simplistic would be better, and they didn't even give us as much messy world building. And then there's two other groups of characters here. One is the Nines, who are like these special forces squad, who are kind of like pretty much like they serve right under the main leader of this group here, and they do whatever they say. They fight with Squad 13, but also they're not like bad guys. It's kind of weird. They handle them completely different in the anime and the manga. I think better in the manga, where they give them a little more development, and they have a really cool fight.
Like mean people.
But they're clones of 02, so they're similar to that. They can pilot and girl, boy, girl pairs. It don't matter. They're really strong. They have special Franxx. But in the manga, they have a really cool fight with the lead Calaxosaur, with the Calaxosaur princess, which is pretty cool. She absolutely wipes them. It's pretty sick, but they didn't have that in the anime. And then the last character I want to talk about super briefly is Dr. Franxx. He's the one who designed the Franxx. He's the one who made the immortality injection that all the people have on Earth. Because it's not that important to the plot, and once again, they took it out of the manga. I watched a video today by Mother's Basement, and he talked specifically about the episode where they give you Dr. Franxx's backstory. That's where he decided the show was going downhill. I think any part after that, that's when I feel like the pacing of the show got kind of sloppy and the show went downhill. So skip before the Dr. Franxx episode and skip to the manga, and you'll get a better ending.
That's fine.
It was weird. Like when he talked about it, I'm like, man, the world building really is kind of messy.
I feel like there could have been so much there.
And it was like, I realized there's so much similar stuff to Ava. They gave him like a love interest, and she's like, no, I'll test out the suit myself. And she dies. I'm like, man, this is familiar.
I mean, I wouldn't say he goes full Gendo.
No, he does not, because he doesn't like. He's just kind of moves on from his love interest. It's weird that they gave him like a love interest only to kill her off like 10 minutes later, and it was not compelling at all. But I don't know. And they treat him like he's a good guy. He's done some bad stuff. He's the one who experimented on the kids. He created 02 and tortured her. So I don't know. He's there.
He's a guy.
But he also tries to make up for his mistakes at the end by reuniting her and Hiro
and
trying to get them to remember each other. So, some upsides and downsides. So that's the main cast here.
Right.
The next thing I'll talk about is what it means to me. I guess what I really liked was I love the romance in it. Like I said, it shines, and it had like really good, a lot of great moments, a lot of great dialogue between all the characters, and a lot of cool things happen. And I like the way that they approach romance. Hiro and 02 just want to like become one with each other, and just completely accept each other for who they are, no matter if 02 is human or not. It doesn't even matter.
Or anything.
It don't matter who they are. And after they keep piloting together, eventually Hiro starts to become part her too. Like he grows horns like her.
It's pretty cool.
Horns. It's actually
horns,
So they really do get to be one, and that happens in the anime in the manga. But I really love that, and the romance was so good. There's like a lot of downsides too, where some part we find out that 02's just been using Hiro to try to become human, and then they have like a big fight. Hiro ends up in the hospital, and then that's right when they get their memories back, and then they go to try to find each other. They handle it completely different in the manga and the anime, which I'll make that the segue in the manga differences.
Yeah, dude, it is with
that main like moment when they remember each other is just completely different. In the anime, they remember, and then 02 goes after Hiro in the hospital and is like, hey, I need to talk to him. I promise I will never hurt him again. Like, I didn't know he was my real darling. But also at the same time, Hiro breaks out of the hospital to go to find 02, and she thinks that they all set her up, and she beats up like all of Squad 13 in the anime. It's kind of dark, and then eventually at the big fight, well, one of the last big fights, Hiro goes after her, and in like a training unit almost dies, but is able to make his way back to her and be like, hey, I can forgive you, I love you. In the manga, what did they do differently? They just had it so they remembered at the same time that 02 got captured by the Calaxosaur princess. There wasn't like that whole part where he was in the hospital and she beat up the whole squad. That didn't even happen. Yeah, it's so different. And moving on to the next thing, the ending. The ending was completely different.
Yeah.
In the anime, obviously, a lot of spoilers here, so I'll talk about the ending. It's weird. Hiro and Zero Two get together, and then they fight the Klaxosaur Princess, but then they reveal that there's a completely different villain. The Papa, the person who's like in charge of the world now, is called a Verm.
Yeah.
Verm or Vern? I don't know.
I think it's Verm.
Verm.
Like
and they are like a group of bodiless beings who just want to have everybody like join as one and have no bodies and just souls.
I've heard that
I feel like we've heard that somewhere.
I couldn't tell you where. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, it's really just like trying to be
That's crazy.
Ava.
That is just
It's just the exact same thing as the human instrumentality.
That's wild.
It's crazy. But so yeah, they do that, and the Klaxosaurs team up with the children, and Zero Two turns into a big spaceship, and they go to space, and they separate Hiro and Zero Two again, where she goes off to space without him, and he has to go into space, and he teams up with one of the guys from the Nines.
Yeah.
And they pilot together, and then all the Nines like kill themselves in like a blaze of glory trying to help Hiro get there. They sacrifice themselves, and then Hiro gets to her. They reunite again, and they're like, no, we beat them, but we have to go to their homeworld and defeat them. But all the other characters stay back on Earth and try to like rebuild without using like the magma energy, which we find out the Klaxosaurs are made of magma energy, and that's why they've been coming after the humans. Yeah, after basically. So I feel like they were trying to do something there and talk about like
I'm
using
sure.
the fossil fuels.
I'm
Like what if the
sure.
dinosaurs came back and started
Yeah.
trying to eat us? I don't know. It's weird, but yeah. So they go to space, and then the last episode is like cuts years and years of them traveling through space. They eventually defeat the Vern, and they die in the process. And then it cuts to back to Earth, and there's a time skip, and all the rest of the group of Squad 13 is like rebuilt some of Earth. Goro and Ichigo get together. They do their thing, and he's always like exploring. There's a cool part where he has like this sick duster.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part of the episode. The only thing I'm like, man, thank God we got that time skip because we get to see Goro
sick duster.
all sick and cool. But that's how it ends, and then it ends with like some part of like Zero Two and Hiro getting reincarnated, and they're like always destined to be together, no matter how many.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a happy ending. I wouldn't even really call it bittersweet, even though they die, but they still get to be together forever. So.
Yeah.
The manga ending is completely different. They fight. The Klaxosaur Princess still gets like they still team up to fight the Vern, but they just beat them and then it ends. They don't go to space. There's no part of them like going to the Vern's home world.
Like,
There's
come
no
back to
time
Earth?
skip. They don't leave Earth. Does who come back to Earth?
They don't.
The Vern?
They fight in space.
No.
They fight on Earth.
Yes. So the fight
And
is
then-
like the Klaxosaur Princess being controlled by Vern.
Okay.
In the like the star entity, which is like the big Franxx.
Yes.
Yes,
I
you remember
recall.
that? Because
Yes.
eventually Zero Two turns into it. That's
For
what
sure.
she turns into.
Yes, naturally.
But she doesn't turn into a big ship in the manga.
Yeah.
They Hiro and Zero Two get reunited. Because when they reunite that time, it's right after we found out their backstories. That's when they reunite. Because Zero Two got like taken over by the Klaxosaur Princess, hurt him, and she's like, he'll never forgive me, I'm just gonna go fight by myself.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I forgive you. They get together, they fight, they defeat the big like the Klaxosaur Princess who's being controlled by the Vern, and then it ends. They all decide, hey, we're gonna rebuild the Earth together. Dr. Franxx says, hey, if there's anybody who can like any of the adults who survive.
Didn't he die in the manga? Or
He
anime?
dies in both.
Yeah.
In the anime, he gets like crushed by like a big piece of
Yeah.
debris. It's silly. But in the
Yeah,
manga,
see,
he
I'm okay with that.
he gives the adults like one last thing. He's like, hey, take care of the kids if you can, because there are adults who used to be pilots who were like kind of help them and foster them and help them learn how to be good Franxx pilots. And he said, hey, if any of you guys survive, take care of the kids, help them rebuild the Earth. And that's how it ends. Dr. Franxx dies in an explosion, and everybody's just going to rebuild the Earth. And that's how it ends.
Rebuild the Earth.
I think it's a lot simpler.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Okay.
And
It
what
definitely, I mean, it
yeah,
sounds
I
like-
think the manga, I think, is better overall. The anime is longer.
That's very
They
interesting.
cut out a lot of the BS in the manga, but they also cut out a lot of like the slice of life moments.
Yeah,
like they
which
cut
I'm-
out
I'm
the
sure you
episode where
liked.
like they have a fight, like the boys and the girls, and they separate the house, divide it in two, and 02's just like egging both of them on because she just wanted to.
Just a menace, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's great. And then they also cut out a part where Mitsuru and Kokoro get, like, they have a wedding and she gets pregnant.
Yeah, I don't know how they cut, like, that's a big...
It's a crazy moment,
It's such a big part of it, because I think a lot of, like, them being the age they are, the coming-of-age story, and, like, a lot of the things are secret and
them
hidden
trying
from them,
because
they don't understand, like,
she finds a book on, like, childbirth, and that's how they discover
It's
it.
crazy to cut
They
out.
completely take it out.
That's wild.
They still are together at the end, so I'm sure it happens later,
Yeah.
but, yeah, it's not even a plot point.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So they cut out a lot of the slice of life moments. There's a part 2 after a fight in the anime where, like, the adults are all basically, most of them are dead, nobody's there to take care of them, and they have to fend for themselves, make their own food and stuff like that. And I really like those moments because I feel like you got a lot of good character development and them learning how to take care of themselves, which is great in a coming of age story.
Yeah.
All right, so what did and then it was just overall a manga so much shorter. I think it's paced better, but it's way faster paced. It's only 8 volumes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right, and then I have one little thing what I wish were different. The ending, obviously, I like the manga ending better. I think that was a good way to end it.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
The next thing I wish was different. I said less Ava.
Yeah.
Because having watched that, I guess after Ava, after I'm like, wow, this is the same.
Yeah.
But it's just like they shouldn't. I mean, they don't like take any of the psychological elements from it. But like a lot of like the visuals, like there's one part where they defeat one of the Klaxosaurs and then it like grows these wings.
Cross? Oh.
No, but I'm like, man, that looks like Ava.
Yeah.
And like they use the Klaxosaurs to make their suits, much like the angels in Ava.
Whoa, spoiler.
Okay,
I'm kidding.
we're gonna talk about it soon.
We will. I mean,
It's this is like Ava Walmart edition.
Yeah.
But I really love the
Great
romance.
value.
Yeah, it's great value. What I didn't like, the space fight, which they take it out in the manga, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And in the anime, the manga, they do it a couple times, but they just make some kind of like force that's going to separate 02 and Hiro, and then they have to like reunite. They do it like 5 times in the anime.
Yeah, that's repetitive.
Because they do it when she goes to space. They do it when Hiro gets kidnapped by the Klaxosaur princess. They do it when she hurts him. They do it in the beginning. Like, they do it so many times. In the manga, they only do it, like, maybe 3. Like, once in the beginning. And there's actually a cool scene in the manga where he has to fight one of the 9s. He has to fight 9 Alpha to, pilot with 02. But, yeah, so, and the last other thing I kind of like that the manga did, they resolved the conflict with Mitsuru better. After he gets his memory back, he remembers a promise he made to Mitsuru.
Yeah.
In the anime, all he does is he's like, hey, I'm sorry, I never kept my promise. He doesn't say, hey, my memories were erased there. I guess it's implied, but they never really say it.
Yeah.
And in the manga, they do. And eventually, at the last fight, when Hiro's trying to catch up to 02, get with her so they can pilot and save the day, he pilots with Mitsuru and Kokoro. He hops in the Franxx with him, so he's like, and Mitsuru's like, this counts, you're keeping your promise. And I thought that was really cool that they
I like that.
resolved that conflict.
I like that.
So yeah, that's Darling in the Franxx. I didn't expect to talk about it as much as I did.
Yeah.
I guess I did a lot of research. I
No, for sure. And I mean, look, we're getting
it's a
higher
show
up on the
I'm
list.
very passionate
Clearly,
about.
it means something.
I'm critical of it, but I also love it so much. That's
Yeah.
why it takes the place it did on my list.
No, that's good.
So, we'll move on to you here if you're ready. I'm ready.
Sure. I just wanted to kind of finish off some of my thoughts.
Oh, yeah,
with
of
the
course.
show. I just like, at least at the beginning, the romance just doesn't fully do it for me. I guess that they're destined to be together because they knew each other in the past, but they don't remember it. I think obviously giving that past plot wrinkle there definitely strengthens the romance a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's how I kind of felt, at least at the beginning.
Right.
And I mean, I certainly agree that the ending's pretty whack.
Yeah, I think you said that when you talked about the show previously.
Yeah, like it's got some good stuff. It's got, I mean, Darling, 02's an iconic character without a doubt. Some of the fights are pretty fun. Like some of the romance is also good. I like a lot of it. But yeah, the ending's just, it's wild.
I think it's kind of crazy. Like make a new character, like a new villain at the end, and then
Yeah.
try to, like, at least in the manga they made him, but it was one fight and done.
Yes.
Like, it was a one and done. It wasn't,
Yeah.
hey, let's make this 5 episodes with a new.
I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing ever, because like Papa and that whole thing, like the whole time there was definitely something dark.
Yeah, going on the way the kids were treated.
I
and how
guess
they grew up.
maybe it needed to be explored more for it to feel more earned at the end. But I don't know. It's interesting. I think there was like a lot of cool world stuff that they could have explored a lot more. Like that whole like idea of the people in the future and just the way that they wore. It was
Yeah, they don't do anything.
No,
they
it's
basically live
really
in VR
wild.
headsets. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's really, really wild.
But,
so I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah. All right. Moving on to Dragon Ball Z. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, genuinely, that was not bad at all.
All right. Let's go. All right. So before we start, I think I'm going to go Super Saiyan real quick. No, I'm kidding. All right. So Dragon Ball Z. What are you doing?
I'm getting a water.
That sounds good. Get hydrated, brother. So Dragon Ball Z follows the adventures of the adult Goku, who, along with his companions, defends the Earth against an assortment of villains ranging from intergalactic space fighters and conquerors, unnaturally powerful androids, and nearly indestructible magic creatures. I think I pulled that from the Dragon Ball Z wiki. It's a little bit of a summary. This is a pretty darn long show, so I don't think I can really sum it up in a few sentences. But I actually liked that. I looked at a few different websites to be like, what's a short little synopsis I can get here? And that was definitely the best one. So with this show being almost 400 episodes, I think there's a lot that I can't cover. So I tried to, jot down a lot of like my highlights, the most meaningful things to me. So, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it doesn't take an hour,
That's fine if it does.
It sounds good. So the show is broken up into 4 main sagas. Some certainly longer than others, some a little more popular than others. But what I think we'll do here is I'll just go through each saga, hit some of the highlights for me, talk about any meaningfulness or things that I think are cool, and we'll go from there. So Dragon Ball Z starts with the Saiyan saga. So we're now in the future from where Dragon Ball left off, which, pretty cool that you talked about that not so long ago.
Yeah,
so
like 2 weeks ago.
We
So
kind
it
of
works out.
just pick right back up. So I'll definitely be spoiling some things, but I'll also be skipping a lot, like I said. So some of this might not make any sense if you haven't seen it. But we're just going to roll. So at the very beginning of the show, pretty much, one of the initial powerful moments is after it's revealed Goku is a Saiyan and comes from outer space. His brother's there, Raditz, and there's a big fight, and Goku and Piccolo join forces to save Gohan after Piccolo was just a villain in the show previous. But the fight eventually ends with Piccolo charging up an attack and having to kill Goku to kill Raditz, the guy who was attacking and stealing Gohan. So that's pretty wild. Like, this show starts, Goku dies. He's going to come back eventually.
Spoilers.
Sorry. It's literally still part of this saga. But that's a pretty wild way to start. So then it's revealed that more, even stronger Saiyans are going to be coming in a year. So you know what that means. You got to train.
Yeah, because Piccolo opens his fat mouth.
Yes. So Piccolo decides he's going to train Gohan pretty intensely. I think it's made evident pretty early on that Gohan has a lot of potential. It's maybe even said, I think it's said by Vegeta before they get to the planet, even that a Saiyan that has a child with a human, like a half Saiyan, half human person or so, has unlimited potential, which I think is pretty interesting. So eventually they do get there. Vegeta and Nappa wipe the floor with the Z fighters. Super strong moment here at the beginning. Piccolo sacrifices himself for Gohan. So I think that's really, really cool, given the past that you've spoken about in Dragon Ball with Piccolo being a main villain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was awful.
And, he spends a year training with Gohan, and I mean, their relationship gets developed throughout this show, throughout Super, and on. But this was like one of the first moments where it's like, okay, there's a bond here. You know, Piccolo almost sees Gohan as a son, and Gohan, having not had a father for the last year, like sees Piccolo as a father figure. So Piccolo sacrificing himself for Gohan, pretty wild stuff, pretty cool. So basically, this whole time they're waiting for Goku to get back. He's running down this long, like, I forget if it's like a snake path or
Yeah, I think
dragon
it's
path.
a snake.
It might be a snake.
Or it might be a dragon.
I don't know.
It's scaly.
It's long. Yeah. So eventually he does get back, and this leads to one of our first like fully epic battles in Dragon Ball Z, and that's going to be Goku versus Vegeta. There's some moments where I think Vegeta turns into a great ape, then Gohan turns into a great ape. Pretty wild stuff to see that. Not something we see a ton of.
No, because the moon's gone.
In DBZ. Yeah.
Again.
Well, there's a fake moon.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
On their spaceships or their pods.
Yeah,
I think it's on
like
the pods.
Some sort of, I don't know.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Piccolo does destroy the moon again in this. You said the moon gets destroyed in Dragon Ball.
Yeah, Roshi destroys it.
Like Piccolo-
Kami fixes it.
Okay.
Once Goku loses his tail,
Yeah.
and then Piccolo destroys it
Piccolo
again.
destroys it because Gohan turns when they're training.
The moon's had it rough in Dragon Ball.
But this is the introduction to Vegeta, who's a pretty awesome character, very, very popular. Was originally supposed to just be in this arc, this saga, but was so popular that he ended up having to be a recurring character and becoming one of the main characters, just because, you know, the people want to see him, and if he's going to pay the bills, you got to keep bringing him back.
Vegeta's awesome,
Yeah.
so I understand that.
For sure. Some other epic moments in the fight, like there's a Goku Kamehameha versus a Vegeta Gallic Gun. That's like their classic
Yeah.
beam on beam, like pushing back and forth action. That's awesome. Vegeta ultimately does lose. I think after he's like crushed by Gohan in his Great Ape form. But Goku lets him leave because that's how Goku rolls.
Yeah, because Krillin was, I don't know whose sword he had. He had maybe Yajirobe's
Probably,
or
yeah,
Gohan's
was
sword.
gonna stab him.
Yeah, and Goku's like, no.
Just let him go.
The person who just tried to kill us and destroy the planet, let's
Yeah.
let this guy live.
That's not the last time Goku's gonna do that.
Not the first time either.
How about that? So yeah, I mean, I think this is a really solid introduction. Really, really opens up the Dragon Ball universe here with the Saiyan Saga. Gives a lot more backstory to where Goku's from and opens up a world of possibilities for things to happen. So then this leads us into the Frieza Saga, which takes place mostly on Namek, home world of Piccolo, the Namekians. You know the deal. So this starts with a search for the Dragon Balls. Earth's Dragon Balls either are used or destroyed. I don't recall. There's Dragon Balls on Namek, so they're like, let's go to Namek. We got to wish all the people back that died. Rip Yamcha. Iconic dead Yamcha pose in the Saiyan Saga.
Yeah.
So everybody ends up on Namek. You've got Goku after he's healed from the fight. He was really busted up, has to get there. Vegeta's there, Gohan's there, Bulma's there, Piccolo, Krillin, all of the above. And then there was also, in Search of the Dragon Balls, a great villain named Frieza, who I write, you know, who I'd never heard of them before. So yeah, I mean, the main aspect of this saga is going to be the longest fight in anime history, as far as I'm concerned. It might be true, it might not.
It's probably the most popular long
It's
fight.
crazy. Oh, it's crazy long. So Frieza goes through 4 different forms. He's fighting Vegeta, Piccolo. Gohan and Krillin a little bit. It's crazy. But eventually the main fight ends up being Goku and Frieza. And this fight goes on for a long time. They do think eventually that Goku defeated Frieza with a spirit bomb. I actually watched today. There's a whole episode where they think Frieza's dead, and they're planning to get back to Earth. They got
Is
the
that
Dragon
the first
Balls.
time he does a spirit bomb? No, what is that?
He might use one against Vegeta.
He might. I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, he might use one against Vegeta. But at the end of that episode, it's then revealed, oh no, Frieza's still alive. Frieza's still alive. So I think even at this point, Vegeta is either really hurt or dead. There's one funny part where he like gets Krillin to blast a hole in him because he's like Saiyans get stronger when they're near death, and he does get stronger.
That's classic Vegeta.
It's pretty
awesome.
metal. But yeah, so Frieza comes back, and it leads to probably the most iconic scene in the whole show, I would say. One of the most in anime history. So Frieza comes back immediately, like he's got like a laser shooter with his finger. That's kind of how it's made attack.
Yeah, he shoots just lasers.
Red lasers, yeah. Immediately he shoots Piccolo. Piccolo's down for the count. Not fully dead, but definitely busted up. And then he kind of like uses the Force on Krillin, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange.
I don't know what Krillin's death is like in Dragon Ball. How like
off screen,
yeah.
But when Goku finds him dead and he's like a little kid and in their blue suits that launch made for him, it was I was so sad when I just rewatched it. I still cried. I mean, obviously the one in Dragon Ball Z carries more weight, but in Dragon Ball it was really sad to see.
Yeah, I mean, so he like uses the Force on, he like pushes him way up in the sky, we'll say, and then he explodes Krillin. Like, just in front of our eyes. Just exploded into a million pieces.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I don't like it.
Pretty vicious. And that being Goku's best friend, obviously, he's touched on a couple weeks ago. Like, best friends since they were kids, training together. Yeah, that pushes him pretty far. I
think, too, that was before they retconned the whole thing with the Dragon Balls, because originally you could only wish somebody back from the dead once.
Well, I think maybe if it was the Namekian Dragon Balls, they could wish him back again. I
guess, because I think they brought Chaozu back, like, twice by that point.
Yeah.
Because Chaozu dies in Dragon Ball, then he dies again in the Saiyan Saga. So maybe. I don't know.
Look, nobody's ever permanently dead in Dragon Ball. The show's got to keep on rolling, you know?
Heck yeah, it does.
But this then leads into the first Super Saiyan transformation. It's insane. It's crazy. It's really, really epic. It's touched on a little bit before. It's something that Vegeta has been striving for. He thinks he's the great Super Saiyan, the strongest Saiyan of all time. And here Goku is brought on by rage of seeing his best friend brutally murdered. Ups the ante big time in this fight. Hair goes gold, eyes turn blue. Just Super Saiyan. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's epic.
It is. So it's actually a pretty cool transformation because it's relatively to a lot of the ones we'll see later in the show. It's pretty quick. He doesn't scream for too long. It just kind of happens. I think the scene's really, really beautifully animated. Like there's like lightning striking in the background as we kind of see him start to turn. And then it just happens, and like I wrote here, it's about as iconic as it gets. So that's a pretty awesome moment to see emotions, specifically like anger, to be honest, drive one of our characters to this new high. It will not be the last time that something like this happens, but I think that it was pretty awesome, and I'm sure like watching this the first time it happened back in 1989, I think. Must have been pretty incredible. So that I think is the main highlight of the Frieza saga. Fight does eventually end. Goku's trying to let Frieza live. Frieza's blowing up the planet. I think there's like multiple times where Goku's like I'm gonna let you go.
Oh yeah, isn't there one part Frieza's like in half and Goku's like I'm gonna leave you here, and then he shoots a beam and then Goku reflects it back? Is that how Frieza dies?
I thought he might actually.
I don't know. I think I remember seeing that scene.
He dies to a beam.
Yeah, I think he shoots something at Goku, and then he might reflect it or just shoot something right back and then kill him.
So he wipes Frieza out. Everybody escapes as the planet's blowing up. They're not sure if Goku's going to make it or not, but he does. Pretty wild ending to a very, very long fight. But yeah, pretty awesome stuff. And that leads us into my favorite saga of the show. I see this as the real climax. Like so much happens. We get a lot of development. We get a lot of new characters. I think the fighting is still long, but it's not as long as that fight. That's gonna be the Cell saga. There's also like it kind of starts with what some people will call the Android saga, but I just kind of lump it all into one because Cell's technically an android, its whole thing.
Right.
But it starts with the re-arrival on Earth now of Frieza and his dad.
What is his dad? Cooler or refrigerator? Is there a refrigerator?
King Cold, I think.
King Cold. I think Cooler's like a movie character.
Yeah,
There's definitely a Cooler, but okay.
That might be Frieza's brother or something.
I don't know. There's a lot of cold names.
So, they're showing up on Earth. They see their like power levels coming. Like it's going to be an issue. It took everything to beat Frieza once. Now he's back somehow, and he's got his father, who I'm sure is crazy powerful as well. But it's also at this time that a mysterious purple-haired character arrives from the future. From the future, a lot more to be revealed on the character. But this leads me into another one of my favorite moments, most iconic moments. I'm sure everybody like. I'm not picking moments here that are not crazy popular. That's just kind of how the show is. But it's so sick. So Frieza arrives with his father. They're like, getting ready to mess some stuff up. And then this purple-haired character, well, suddenly his hair turns gold. And here we are, a second Super Saiyan. That's crazy. Like, wow, who is this person? So this is Trunks, later revealed to be the son of Vegeta and Bulma. He's come from the future to warn of a great enemy that will be coming and has come to his world. And, his first appearance leads to him fighting Frieza. But I don't think we can really call it a fight.
No.
So this character that we just watched Goku and others battle with for episode after episode, Trunks just shows up and cuts him in half, and then cuts him into a bunch of little pieces. But initially,
it's like one hit?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
There's a part, I don't remember if it's in Broly or Superheroes, where they watch a recording of that fight. You get to see the fight in real time.
Yeah,
it's like 1 second long. It's crazy.
Yes. I totally.
I think that's in Superheroes.
I forget. Yeah, it's great. Whatever it's in. Yeah, I completely forgot about it in the real
time. It's crazy to see.
But yeah, it just shows right away like how crazy powerful this character is. So super cool there to kind of close the door again on Frieza. Not close forever if you watch Dragon Ball Super, but I know. But yeah, Trunks, not only is he so sick for doing this right away, he also uses a sword, which is just instantly going to make somebody cooler. So yeah, Trunks warns then that great enemy will be arriving in, I think it's like 3 years they have. In his world, Goku died to a virus, and everybody else is wiped out.
That's crazy,
right? He gives him medicine to save him in this.
What is it? Is it like heart medicine?
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know. He gets the coronavirus.
He ends up bedridden, but does survive in this one after the medicine and all. Obviously, Goku doesn't die to it, but yeah, pretty crazy to kill him to that. So yeah, in Trunks' timeline, everybody else is dead. He's struggling to battle against these androids, and he's taught by Gohan. This isn't like a side movie thing, but Gohan is the one that teaches him. Gohan's like crazy, super powerful in the future. He's the only one left of the Z Fighters, and eventually Gohan dies, which leads to Trunks going full rage mode and going Super Saiyan. Eventually, he's able to travel with this capsule corp, time machine thing that Bulma has devised, and he comes back to warn the team in the past, and that's not going to change anything in the future. But this saves their timeline, and then also Trunks then has opportunity to get stronger and go back and take care of business in his timeline. So super cool there. Great introduction to him. One of the coolest characters in Dragon Ball, especially in Dragon Ball Z. I don't love him that much in Dragon Ball Super, but he's so good in Dragon Ball Z. So yeah, like I said, they have 3 years to train. Leads to a pretty ultimate training arc involving the hyperbolic time chamber. I think there's a more literal translation. I think that was made up, hyperbolic. But it's a place where you can train for like infinite amount of time and like no time passes in the real world. Trunks and Vegeta go in and train for like a year, which is a day. Gohan and Goku go in and train for like a year, which is a day. And they come out, and once they're out, they're just constantly Super Saiyan, which I think is pretty funny. and everybody's like, whoa, what's going on? They're like, they've gotten so strong that they can just maintain the powered up form. So I think that's kind of how we show that they powered up. So long story short, next, I mean, there's fights with the androids who do eventually arrive, built by the Red Ribbon Army. So you were asking, like, do they come back?
I wasn't. I know they come back.
Well, you were saying.
Yes, that's why I talked about them
the
a couple weeks ago.
Last time, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They might come back. Who knows? They do.
We end up with 17 and 18, Android 17 and 18, who are just kind of like people looking. I'm sure you've seen them if you're familiar with Dragon Ball. But then also we have Cell, who came from the future again, but also he's there now. It's a whole thing.
Oh, he came from the future?
Yeah, this version of Cell did come from the future, but I think there's a Cell in the timeline, which they eventually kill.
But there's another Cell.
Yeah, yeah. So Cell, like, long story short, absorbs the androids to get more powerful. There's a part where Vegeta's fighting him and beating him up, and then Vegeta lets him absorb one of the other androids to get even more powerful and become Perfect Cell, who I'm sure we've heard of here. And then he wipes the floor with Vegeta, and Cell pretty much. Yeah, it's really something, isn't it? So eventually, Cell decides that he's going to host the Cell games rather than just fight and beat everybody up. He makes like a big stage in the middle of nowhere to fight. So that's kind of where the climax of this saga takes place. And I think Goku goes in and fights him initially. Which makes sense. It's Goku's show. But given his time training with his son in the chamber and just what he's done in the past, I think Goku is aware that Gohan has pretty incredible potential. And he's going to let it shine by taking a step out of the ring and letting Gohan take a crack at Cell. So this leads to eventually my favorite moment in the whole show. So Cell has these little Cell Jr. little guys that are beating up all the Z fighters. It's just Cell and Gohan. Everything looks like it's lost in the fight. He can't stand up to Cell. They can't even stand up to the mini Cells.
That's crazy.
And one of the other androids, there was actually 3 left alive at the time, 16, I guess, 16, 17, 18, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 16.
Who was programmed to kill Goku, but through like love of the world and wildlife and just life.
Is he the one who likes birds? Is that just the thing in a bridge?
It might be played up in a bridge, but he does love nature and all.
Okay.
In the show, and he's able to kind of humanize in that way. But he's been pretty much destroyed. All that's left of him is a head. Mr. Satan, who's introduced in this.
Mr. Satan.
He's a guy,
he's just a guy.
He is just a guy. Throws the head kind of like at Gohan. As Cell's coming to like pretty much end the fight, and 16 starts talking to Gohan. I think it's a good time now to mention Gohan's sort of like ideology. Unlike his father, he has no passion whatsoever for fighting. He does not want to hurt others. He doesn't, want to fight in wars. He just wants to keep people safe, protect people. But even then, like, he does not want to do it through violence. So this whole him being thrown into the ring to fight Cell is just not what he's about. And I mean, later, especially in Dragon Ball Super, like, he gets to kind of live the life that he wants to live. But in this moment, that's not really an option for him. So Android 16, what's left of him, just his head, is like in front of Gohan, gives him a little bit of a speech. One of my favorite lines from it was, "It's no sin to fight for what is right." Just kind of talks about like there's some people that he'll never be able to reason with. So he's just gotta fight. He doesn't want to do it, but if he's gonna save the people he loves, if he's gonna save the world, he's not gonna do it through words. He's going to have to win the fight. This then leads to Cell like walking over and stomps on Android 16's head. And in this moment, Gohan realizes what he has to do. I think it's been true of his character the whole time that that's how he feels. But what 16 said there, I think, really unlocked an understanding in him for what he needed to do and what he had the strength to do. So once again, in a moment of rage, as he needs to do this to protect everything he loves, Gohan does a little yell, as they do whenever they transform.
Oh, yeah.
In the Japanese in particular, I like the song that plays in the background. The English dub song is good too. It's just a little bit more like scory, where the song in Japanese is like it's a song with singing. And it's Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation. I actually don't know what it was called originally, Super Saiyan 2. Like, I don't think it was initially that. I don't know. It's funny to me that all the transformations are just 1, 2,
did it
3.
have a different name? Or?
I don't think it had any name.
It was
And then,
just,
yeah.
okay.
Maybe when 3 came out, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Gohan, transforms once again into this higher power that nobody's ever seen before. Cool aura around him. He's got like lightning around him. It's just super sick, super cool. And we see his face as kind of the music starts to turn. He's crying, and eventually the song starts to fade away. You can start to hear like more of his aura in the background. His tears then fade away, and he's kind of just like turns his head down a little bit. And you can see that he's really found his resolve. And that's just, it's a really, really awesome moment for me. And I think it's very popular for a reason. I think it's definitely a moment of growth, but also change. Understanding that things aren't always going to be the way he wants them to be. So he's kind of got to do what he has to do in the moment. And no, it's not going to define him. He doesn't have to become this fighting monster. But he has the power to save people at this moment, and he has to do it. But I think this transformation also kind of changes him a little bit, rather than just help him grow. You almost see like more of like the Saiyan side of him take over, his Saiyan pride. He becomes a little bit more overconfident then after this in the fight with Cell, kind of toying with him, beating him up real bad. He eventually like spits out some of the androids and powers down. But in Gohan's inability to finish the fight, Cell decides he's going to turn himself into a bomb. He gets real big, and he's gonna blow up the Earth. So this leads to Goku's sacrifice. So Goku has to step in. His son wasn't able to defeat Cell through probably his own hubris, and instead of letting the Earth blow up, Goku is going to transport himself and Cell to somewhere else.
Where does he go? Does he blow up King Kai's planet?
Does, yeah.
Poor King Kai.
I know. And as Goku has already died once, he shouldn't be able to come back. I mean,
I guess they have the
obviously he's going to.
Namekian Dragon Balls at that point, too.
Yeah. He doesn't even come back through Dragon Balls.
Yeah.
But it adds a lot of weight to the moment. And so, Goku sacrifices himself to save his son, to save everybody he loves, to save the planet. Pretty powerful and touching moment there, which is all in vain as Cell comes back after this. I think Cell's like made of a bunch of different people set. It's like it's very interesting. But I think he has like part of Vegeta in him, which thus is part,
didn't they like use their
Saiyan.
blood or something?
Yeah. So then he's thus part Saiyan. So as he's beat to an inch of his life, he comes back only stronger. So this leads to them fighting again, which ultimately resolves in a pretty awesome climax of the father and son Kamehameha. So it's Gohan after one of his arms is broken. Goku, voice from the heavens, telling him that he still has the power to end this, and he can do it. So does a Kamehameha with one hand, and you kind of see like a ghost of Goku also doing it with him.
That's pretty cool.
It's really, really awesome. Really, really cool moment. And Gohan's able to finish the fight. Really, really epic attack there at the end. One of the coolest in the whole show. I really love that arc. Gives us the androids as new characters. Cell is a pretty interesting villain, and it really just is Gohan's time to shine. He's definitely my favorite Dragon Ball character, so it's awesome for him to have all these moments, and I think this is probably the coolest he ever is in this arc. We'll see in the next saga. He definitely still has some moments, but he's not who he was here, and certainly in Dragon Ball Super, he's not who he was here, except for occasionally. But yeah, that's the end of the Cell saga. Really, really enjoy that one. And then there's a pretty big time skip at the end of that, or into the next saga. Goku has not returned after the fight. It's, I guess, not even clear like if he could return. Like maybe they make it sound like he could, but he chooses not to, at least for the time being.
I think, isn't that what they say, that if he stays, it'll keep inviting all these strong
Exactly.
villains?
That's what he says. He is that he's only hurting them by being there, and all these world beating foes he attracts. So he stays away for years. So flash forward, this really was, and I'm sure at the time the plan was for this to be when Gohan took over the show fully as the protagonist. I talked about it a little bit last week when just introducing the show. Did not really work out that way, though I do really enjoy these episodes at the beginning of the next saga, where Gohan's like in high school and trying to balance being a normal person, but then also a superhero on the side, the Great Saiyaman. I don't think the Great Saiyaman's that bad. Very corny.
I enjoyed it.
Pretty
We watched
funny.
most of the episodes together.
But pretty funny. And look, he's a teenager. Of course, he's gonna be a little nerdy. And that kind of superhero. Like it's almost like how Spider-Man is. He's
Yeah,
a
especially in the
crazy-
beginning.
for sure.
Yeah.
Crazy, strong superhero, but also he's just a high school kid. Like, it's that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, I like that a lot. Through people he meets, his future wife in high school, leads to the team entering into a tournament again. It's said now that Goku can come back for one day, and he's going to come back for the tournament because Goku
What
loves to fight.
does Baba, fortune teller Baba,
She
bring her
does,
back?
yeah. For one
She's
day.
in the original Dragon Ball,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I think that's Roshi's sister or something.
It might be
I'm
something
pretty
like that,
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
So he can come back for a day to fight in this tournament. Really, really cool moment in his return. Everybody is obviously excited, but it's revealed at the beginning of this arc, not here, that Goku and Chi-Chi had another son, who I guess was born after Goku had died, naturally, named Goten. And my favorite part of this return is when Goku meets his son for the first time. Goten dresses and looks exactly like Goku.
He's got the same haircut.
A lot more similar to Goku than Gohan. And at least in the English, I don't know what the translation is in Japanese. But Goten's like hiding behind Chi-Chi because he's scared to meet his dad. And Goku's like, Chi-Chi, there's a little me behind you.
Yeah, that's adorable.
So yeah, it's really, really cool. Really, really strong moment there. Thinking about the circumstances. So I like that a lot. So then into the tournament, they're fighting, all this stuff. There's some weird characters around in the tournament. And eventually, one of the characters, a little creepy dude named Babidi, like the people he's controlling, rather, like steal Gohan's power and stuff. It's a whole thing. They got big M's on their foreheads, which we'll get into a little bit later. So Babidi, revealed to be a villain here, wants to revive an ancient evil being named Majin Buu, or just Buu. This eventually is accomplished after Vegeta lets Babidi, kind of control him, but he doesn't fully control him, but it makes him more powerful because Vegeta, after all we've been through, still just wants to beat up Goku.
Yeah.
He still wants to prove himself. And now that Goku's back, he's got that opportunity to do so he's going to take it. So this leads us to Majin Vegeta, and somehow through the uber power of Majin Vegeta and Goku, Buu's resurrected, and that leads to this whole saga. Which one of the first fights is going to be with Majin Vegeta and Buu. It's clear that Buu has outpowered Vegeta, even in his powered up form. Even having kind of broken through the spell and regaining control of himself. This leads to yet another character sacrifice. So that's going to be this time Vegeta's sacrifice. A little bit different than Goku. I mean, Goku is our main hero the whole time. That's obviously something he would do. Vegeta, we've watched through this whole show go from a villain at the very beginning who's going to destroy the planet to someone they team up with a little bit on Namek, to someone who becomes a main part of the crew during the Cell Saga, who eventually has a love interest in Bulma, which leads to their son and him coming back and all. So we've seen him grow so much. Still very prideful character, obviously, and in accepting this power, still shows that he is hungry enough for power that he'll kind of sacrifice some things to try to defeat Goku. But at the end of the day, he loves his family. He even mentions Goku as he's going to sacrifice himself, blow himself up to try to kill Buu. So it's a really, really powerful moment there. Really cool stuff to see from Vegeta. And I think the ultimate like cap on his growth to this point. So pretty cool there. Before Vegeta does it, like Piccolo's talking to him, and I don't know what the translation would have been in Japanese. Or I mean, in this universe, like who's to say there's heaven and hell? I mean, there certainly is versions of heaven.
Well, there is in Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I guess there is heaven and hell, huh?
Because Goku, because there's what's the Lord Yama, the big red guy.
Yeah, and then
decides.
we see hell later with Frieza.
Yeah, spoilers.
Whatever. That's Dragon Ball Super.
No, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Piccolo says like, "You've done a lot of bad. Like, you're gonna die here, and you're gonna go to a bad place. You're gonna go to hell." And that's not enough to stop him, which I think is really, really cool. Love to see his resolve in this moment as well. So that's pretty awesome there. He then dies, is able to come back. You know, that's how it goes. But we get some pretty cool transformations throughout multiple fights with Buu. Buu transforms multiple times. At some point, he splits into Evil Buu and Good Buu, or regular Buu, who eventually becomes a main character of the show. Main, maybe not main, but a character in the show.
Yeah, a character in the show.
Buu can like absorb people. It's pretty wild as like an evil being. But some of the cool transformations we get, Gotenks, the introduction of him, which is the fusion of Trunks and Goten. They're both pretty little kids, so they can't really do a whole lot on their own, but together they put their power together, become one person, and can be a lot stronger. That also builds the way for Vegito, which is the fusion of Vegeta and Goku. They're not done through the same fusion technique. This is done through earrings, whereas that one's done through a dance. It's a whole thing. But Vegito's pretty awesome to see the two fated rivals, one of which hates the other one a whole lot, become one and you know, uber powerful, obviously. They do eventually split so that they can be absorbed by Buu and try to save anybody that's been absorbed by him. Kind of beat him from the outside in type of thing. I did skip over there before that. There's just the introduction of Super Saiyan 3 with Goku. This is the one where his hair gets long. Very cool.
No eyebrows.
No eyebrows, yeah. As he's transforming, like you get a shot of like a great ape real quick. It's very cool. But also very, very draining. So it's not a very useful transformation. Also involves a ton of screaming. Like this one of all the transformations I think up until this point, so much screaming. Like this is when people think of going Super Saiyan, like the video of that one kid just screaming until he goes, obviously doesn't. That I think is it right there. But also just such a sick transformation. So yeah, I mean, there's many fights. There's fights with Gohan, who hasn't been training in years, or at least hardcore training, who has to go have his power or potential unlocked by gods. And he eventually gets absorbed by Buu. And the fight eventually ends with Goku versus Buu. Goku's pretty busted up, pretty beat up. And he's going to use one last spirit bomb to finish things. He needs the energy of every living being. I think Mr. Satan, maybe, I don't know, is getting people to like give their energy.
Yeah, isn't he on TV? Or is he on TV in the Cell Saga?
Well, they're definitely on TV in the Cell Saga.
He might be on TV again, I guess.
He's famous, I don't know.
He's very famous.
But the spirit bomb is eventually powerful enough to defeat Buu, who's at this point Kid Buu, most powerful form of him. In finishing the fight, Goku mentions, like, I wish that you could have like come back not evil. In other words, he says it because I don't know how to speak, but this was a crazy strong foe and somebody who wants to fight the strongest foes. And Goku wishes that he could have been different. Maybe in a different time, they could have fought each other, but also been friends. Which is a little bit foreshadowing for the epilogue, which I'm not really going to talk about because I don't.
Well, they retconned it anyway.
Yes, but like
in Super.
Yeah, it's just not head canon. But yeah, the final spirit bomb to end things. That kind of closes the book on Dragon Ball Z. So much happened through those 4 sagas. So many awesome transformations, awesome fights. So many deaths and resurrections, using the Dragon Balls a ton. But this show really it's a classic for a reason. Such an awesome mix of cool, emotional, and overall just a fun time. I think that it was so cool for kids at the time, which gave it the popularity, but it's also got a lot of heart. And that's really what I like about it the most is the characters. To see the growth in someone like Vegeta, or even Gohan, and growing up, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. The pacing can be pretty rough. They made Dragon Ball Z Kai for a reason, which kind of shortened things up. But yeah, the pacing can be very difficult, which is why I think that even if this is something you haven't watched yet, it's a very fun watch. But it's probably best suited at this point as like a background watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm the kind of person who like needs to be stimulated in a lot of ways at once. Like whenever I'm playing video games, I also have to be watching something. So it's kind of perfect for me in that sense. Like I can be playing the video game but not really paying attention, and also watching this at the same time, and still getting the main gist. Which is why it's toward the middle of my list. I think that there's just so much of it that it's very meaningful, but also there's just a lot that I don't need. It's not as compact as some other things later on down the line that give me so much of what I want and like in such a short amount of time.
Right.
If that makes any sense at all. But at the end of the day, like it's an awesome show. It's as iconic as it is for a reason. And I really do love it. Hopefully I get a little bit of justice going through some of the things there. But it's a special show for me and a lot of people. So that's really all I have on it. Anything you'd add, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta watch it. That's what I gotta add.
Yeah.
Because we watched a little bit past the Saiyan saga.
Yeah.
I watched on my own, like, the beginning of the Frieza fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, pretty much when they go to Namek and all that.
Yeah.
But I gotta get back on it because obviously it's a classic. And as a big Dragon Ball fan, I definitely know I'm missing out on some of the
There's so much good stuff.
The best
dude.
arcs.
There's so much good stuff.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of it. There's definitely a lot of cool moments in what I saw. I really love the Saiyan saga. The moment with Piccolo sacrificing for Gohan's awesome. It's like
great.
when I really started to see, like, when people see Piccolo as, hey, he's a hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's awesome. And then
For sure.
I really like the part in the Saiyan saga where Yajirobe just swoops in and cuts off Vegeta's tail when he's going great ape.
Good to see
like
him.
yeah, Yajirobe is one of
years.
my favorites from original Dragon Ball, so it's cool to see him make a return after like deciding if he's gonna wuss out or not. He decides, you know what, let me do something, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, and then another thing I really love about Dragon Ball in particular is the dub.
Yeah, the dub
I think
is
that's
great.
a show that most people, at least in America, aren't going to argue, hey, you got to watch it subtitled.
Yeah.
Like when I go on like Instagram or TikTok, I see like different reels of it. It's always dubbed.
Yeah, for sure.
Goku doesn't sound like an old lady in the dub.
Yeah, some of the voices are a little wacky in the original Dragon Ball. I think they changed them for Kai.
What is there? Some who?
Frieza's really wacky.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember Frieza's
Frieza's
voice.
really wacky.
But I mean, like Sean Schemmel and Chris Sabat,
Yeah.
Goku and Vegeta,
Just epic, yeah.
Yeah.
Legends. So
and
good.
Piccolo, and Yamcha.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
like,
all the Sabbath characters, huh?
he voices like half the characters in
He
that
does,
show.
yeah.
He voices like most of the people in the Ginyu Force
Yeah.
with different voices.
Yeah, there's like an Australian one in the Ginyu Force.
That's funny.
It is funny.
But yeah, I think it's a show that's definitely elevated by the dub. So good job, America.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I'll end my Dragon Ball
That's
Z
funny.
hot takes.
No, that's very funny. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really all we got there. I know I talked for a while there. Sorry.
Well, I did too. It was a little bit of a long one, so
Yeah, I
if
mean-
you guys listen to the whole thing, thank you.
Yeah, for real.
Maybe going forward for our deep dives, we might want to do like one show.
Yeah, I mean, dude,
Per-
as we get closer
Yeah.
to the top stuff here, we're gonna want to talk more and more about our favorite things. So that makes sense. Alrighty, but anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. As always, had a great time sitting down and talking about these shows we really like. So we look forward to seeing you next week and seeing what more we can bring for you.
All right, sayonara.
Nice. Peace.